What's going on YouTube? It's Dillon James, and on today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 5 rookie quarterbacks in the NFL this year and determine which player is best to buy heading into the 2021 season. So the preseason concluded this past weekend, and now we are eagerly waiting the start of the regular season, September 9th in Tampa Bay, the Buccaneers versus the Cowboys. A very exciting time for all football fans out there. But today on this video, we're going to be talking about the action we saw during the preseason to see if there was any indication as to who's going to be successful this season as a rookie quarterback in the league. So when I was putting together this video, there were a few factors I considered when determining which player would be the best buy heading into this season. Number one, I was looking at what their preseason stats looked like. Although they were playing against first string, second string, and third string players, it is important to see what they would look like in the offensive scheme for their respective clubs. I also looked at the strength of schedule based on the team's records from last season heading into this season as well. So looking at the first few weeks of the season, seeing what teams they were playing to see how successful their clubs would be against those opponents. And third, I would see who is going to be starting, who's going to be sitting, and who had the chance to start heading into this season compared to what their success would look like looking against those clubs. So now let's get into each of these quarterbacks, starting with the quarterbacks we know who will start week 1 this season. So the first quarterback we're going to be talking about is Trevor Lawrence, the starting quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was confirmed last week when Gardner Minshew was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. Trevor Lawrence will be running the show there in Jacksonville, led by Urban Meyer in his first year in the league. Now, this team was in shambles last year. I believe they're still going to be in shambles this year. I think they're the bottom of the AFC South when you have contenders like the Indianapolis Colts, Tennessee Titans, and also the Houston Texans can throw their name out there since Deshaun Watson's still there in Houston. But with this organization, Trevor Lawrence did play quite well in the preseason. He was 31 of 44 for 323 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. He got sacked 3 times in those games this preseason, which I think we'll see a lot more of in this system because the offensive line is not very good in Jacksonville. But looking at the stats here from last season, the offensive rankings, the defensive rankings, both are not very good when it comes to how they played last season, and I believe those numbers will still pretty much be the same, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive side of the ball, Trevor Lawrence might cause an uptick in some of these categories. I think in passing plays, and I believe that he'll probably do pretty well with that organization, but Trevor Lawrence doesn't have much help there in Jacksonville when it comes to playmakers. Even though they do have the wide receiver from last year in the 2020 draft, I still believe that it's going to be very, very tough sledding for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, looking at their schedule this year too, starting off in the first 5 games of the season, they do play up against their rivals in the organization, the Texans, in the division anyway. The Houston Texans are going to be the first game starting off on the 12th. Looking at these first 5 games though, 2 of them are divisional games, so they're going to be very, very important for standings heading into the later part of the season. But I still see this team going maybe 2-3 if they're lucky in this first 5 games of the season. So it's going to be very, very tough for Trevor Lawrence investors and collectors to get any sort of value out of Trevor Lawrence in this situation. So therefore, I believe Trevor Lawrence is not a buy at this current time, because at the end of the day, he's still going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars organization. I don't see them getting out of the gutter anytime soon. I still believe you can find his cards at a cheaper value later in the season when they're not going to make the playoffs. I still think there's some plays there for Trevor Lawrence, but as of right now, I would not purchase him going into the season. Next, let's talk about a quarterback that will be getting the starting role day 1 in the New York Jets organization. That is Zach Wilson, and he will have a pretty good setup there in New York. I think he's going to be faring much better than Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. But with this situation, I do believe that Zach Wilson has the pieces there to be successful, especially with having the new wide receiver out of Tennessee, Corey Davis, coming into this organization, being their number 1 wide receiver. I think that's going to be a dynamic duo in this league moving forward. And I think that he has a potential to have more success in this league early on in his career than most of these quarterbacks we'll be talking about today. But looking at the totals we had here from last season with rankings, the offense was not very good. They ranked 32nd in several categories, but then also the defense, they were kind of middle to lower end when it came to defensive rankings there. for this team. But I do believe there will be an uptick in offensive numbers, especially having LaMichael Pirine there, having Corey Davis there. I think there are some key pieces there for Zach Wilson to utilize to be successful, and I think the offensive line there is going to be a bit better than most of these quarterbacks we'll talk about today as well. But looking at their schedule for the season, the first 5 games, the Panthers, Patriots, the Broncos, Titans, and Falcons, I do believe the Panthers and Falcons are going to be easy games for the Jets to win. I think that it's going to be difficult for the Patriots, Broncos, and Titans to win against those teams, because those teams are going to be very, very stacked this season. The Patriots, I do see there could be a chance for the Jets to win that game. So they could easily go 3-2 if Zach Wilson comes out and plays at the same level he was playing during the preseason, especially having Corey Davis in there, staying healthy as long as he can stay healthy. I think that having that main wide receiver out there will be good for Zach Wilson to develop in this league. So I think Zach Wilson is a buy in this scenario of all the 5 quarterbacks we have here today. Now onto a quarterback we know will not be starting in week 1. That is Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears. Now, the Bears have a very, very good defense. Last season, they were kind of plagued by bad quarterback play from Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky. Although they did keep them in games early in the season, it just kind of spiraled out of control in that scenario. Matt Nagy is still the head coach there for the Chicago Bears. I don't believe Matt Nagy will be there long term. However, he has one last year to prove himself. And in this situation, Justin Fields does look like the better quarterback. However, it looks like they're leaning more towards Andy Dalton being the starter there in the Chicago Bears organization. We'll see if the Red Rocket will be able to propel them to success in this scenario, but I highly doubt that he'll be able to stay as the starting quarterback throughout the entire season. But let's take a look. Justin Fields playing in the preseason, he was 30 of 49, 276 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and also 92 yards rushing with 0 interceptions. So Justin Fields did play very well. He was the quarterback that everyone was talking about in the preseason this year. He's been playing pretty well in the training camp as well. I've heard really good things so far from organization there. But let's look at the season stats for this team last season. For the passing, it looked like they were kind of lower in the pack there when it comes to NFL offenses. But then defense-wise, they were pretty much top 15 overall when it came to defense. So I still believe the Chicago defense will propel the quarterback who's playing in that organization to play very well, because defenses win championships. In this scenario, Chicago has a very, very good defense to lean on. The quarterback can just be a game manager, a time manager in this scenario, and that's why I have a feeling that Andy Dalton will play the first few games as the starter. However, I do see Justin Fields going in there to save Matt Nagy's job at some point this season, because he will have the experience having those first offense reps in practice and in training camp, things of that nature. I think Justin Fields will be really primed to be a starter there in that organization with the Bears. So looking at the first few games, it's a tough stretch for Andy Dalton and the Bears. You have the Rams, the first game of the season. Then you have the Bengals, which will be interesting to see Joe Burrow play up against the team and that defense as well. But then you look at the Browns, you look at the Lions, you look at the Raiders. This team will probably go 2-3 in the first 5 games. I see a win being against the Bengals potentially, and a win being up against the Lions. But other than that, the Rams, the Browns, the Raiders, those are going to be really tough teams for the Bears to compete against. And I still believe that Andy Dalton will be the starter of the first 5 weeks, but then heading into week 6, week 7, we might see a changing of the guard, seeing as in week 6 they play up against the Packers. That might not be a good game for Justin Fields to start. So I'd probably see maybe the 49ers, maybe the Steelers being the first game for Justin Fields in that organization. As of right now, I would say if you are buying into Justin Fields, hold Justin Fields, because his value will go up. But it might be a little too high considering the performance he gave during the preseason right now. So if you have him right now, hold on to him. If you don't have him right now, I would wait until a few games into the season before I start buying Justin Fields. Next, let's talk about the New England Patriots and Mack Jones. Now, Mack Jones, it's looking like he will not be the starter in New England. However, they have not made an announcement yet as to who will be the starter there. I still believe Cam Newton will be the starter. I think last year he played pretty well in the first few games of the season, but then once he had COVID-19, once he got out and came back into play, he was just not the same player as he was before. I think there were lingering effects of COVID-19 with Cam Newton, so therefore I believe Cam Newton will be the starter heading into the regular season, but Mack Jones will be there in the wings waiting to see if Cam Newton does make a mistake. If he does, Mack Jones will come in and be the starting quarterback there for Bill Belichick. And also with Bill Belichick's job not being in jeopardy in this scenario, he is still one of the best coaches, if not the best coach to ever be in the NFL. I still believe Bill Belichick will play this similar to how he played it with Tom Brady, Drew Bledsoe, the scenario there. I still think that Tom Brady was in the wings. I think Mack Jones will be in the wings, and he'll have a similar trajectory in that scenario. But looking at the stats from last season, the passing for the Patriots were not very good. But the defense, however, played pretty well, despite the fact they didn't have Devontae Hightower, and also Patrick Chung as well. Those are two key pieces that are coming back into this organization after sitting out last season due to COVID-19 concerns. Mack Jones, however, he was 36 of 52 in the preseason, 389 passing yards, only one passing touchdown. I think that will not be a good stat for him heading into the starting quarterback competition. I still think that Cam Newton played better than Mack Jones in the preseason, which will lead him to be the starting quarterback. But Mack Jones got sacked 5 times. That offensive line play for the Patriots, not very good during the preseason. Cam Newton has a better way of getting out of trouble in the scenario, being a scrambling quarterback. I think that's going to bode very well for Cam Newton heading into this season, so that's why I still believe that Cam Newton will be the starter there. So as of right now, Mack Jones will be waiting in the wings, but look at the schedule here. They've got the Dolphins, they got the Jets, they have the Saints, Bucks, and the Texans. So not an easy stretch, to say the least, but at the same time, I still believe Cam Newton will give them the edge in most of these games. I still think the Dolphins game will be quite interesting, seeing Tua Tagovailoa actually starting there for the Miami Dolphins to start the season. I think that might be a win for the Patriots. I think the Jets game versus the Patriots, that will be a win as well. Saints might be a bit trickier, especially with Jameis Winston, if he can play at the level that the New Orleans Saints believe he can, which I think he will be able to this season, especially learning from Drew Brees last season. The Buccaneers game, I see that as a loss for the Patriots, and then the Texans game, I see that as a win. So they could potentially go 3-2, if not 4-1 in the first 5 games of the season this year. So as of right now, I think Cam Newton's going to stay as starting quarterback. I don't see a scenario where Mack Jones gets in as starting quarterback until at least week 9, week 10 of the regular season. Because as long as Cam Newton's there and he's healthy, playing at the level they expect him to play at, I think that Cam Newton will remain the starter quarterback there. Mack Jones is a hold for now, and I mean, potentially he could be a buy as well, because I think he's a little bit undervalued in the market, currently in the market, based on the preseason games. Last but certainly not least, we have the San Francisco 49ers quarterback Trey Lance. And as of right now, I still believe Jimmy G is going to be the quarterback there. He's going to be the starter. They have more success with Jimmy G under center than any other quarterback they've had over the past few seasons, ever since getting traded from the New England Patriots to the Niners organization. So I still believe Jimmy G has that job. However, Trey Lance had a pretty shaky preseason as well. I think that doesn't bode well for him either. He was 19 of 41, 276 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and an interception, and got sacked 6 times. So I think that Trey Lance still has some time to mold into a quarterback for the NFL, to be a starting quarterback in this league. I still don't think it's now. I think that Jimmy G is the present way for them to be successful in this league, the Niners being successful. So I think Jimmy G will remain the starter there. But let's look at these numbers from last season. Like I said, I mean, their offense and defense played pretty well last season. Regardless of not having Jimmy G there, they had another quarterback playing there for the Niners, and Nick Mullins was, I believe, the starter there for the Niners. But Jimmy G, he was injured most of the season. He's coming back healthy this year, the healthiest he's been in quite some time. So we'll see if he can stay at that elevated level that we've seen him, when he first came to the San Francisco 49ers, and when he was with the Patriots as well. He played quite well as a backup for Tom Brady. I still see that Trey Lance can be the future there in San Francisco, but just not right now. I think Jimmy G is still the current starter there. So let's look at the schedule for the Niners. They have the Lions, Eagles, Packers, Seahawks, and Cardinals. Pretty easy schedule, I would say, considering all the other teams we talked about today. The Lions, I believe that's going to be a win for them. I believe the Eagles, that's going to be a win for them as well. Packers, that's probably going to be a loss for the Packers. Packers are probably going to win that game, especially being at Niners. I think that's going to be an easy game for the Packers to win. Seahawks, if it was in Seattle, I would say it would be a win for Seattle, but that might be a toss-up as well, as long as Jimmy G is playing at the level we expect him to play. And the Cardinals, I see that as a win for the Niners, especially with their defense. So this team could also go 4-1, if not 3-2. Going into the early part of this season, I think that Trey Lance, as of right now, I would say he's not a buy. I would say that he would be a hold for now, considering that he didn't play very well in the preseason, and I don't see him playing in this organization as a starting quarterback for quite some time, with Jimmy G still staying healthy in that organization. So of these 5 quarterbacks, once again, I believe that Zach Wilson is the buy in this scenario. I think his value will shoot up, especially having a limited preseason. That's really good for collectors and investors, because you can actually buy him at a very reasonable price right now. But then once he goes into the season and starts having success with the New York Jets, I believe his value will continue to increase, and therefore I think Zach Wilson probably is the best buy heading into this season. But with these quarterbacks, of the 5 quarterbacks, I see at least 4 of these quarterbacks starting at least a game in the NFL season this year. Whether it be injury, whether it be poor play, I just think that 4 of these quarterbacks will start for their respective clubs at least one game this season, and it'll be very, very interesting to see if they can be as successful as the 2020 draft class was, especially seeing the way that Justin Herbert played, the way that Joe Burrow played before he was injured, seeing some of those quarterbacks. I think it's going to be very interesting to see if they can be as successful, if not more successful, than the 2020 class. And also, I'll give you one bonus as well. If you're looking for a player to purchase and to hold on to, considering he probably won't be starting the season, I would say Justin Fields would be your best bet. I think later into the season, after week 3, week 4, week 5, I think his value is going to diminish slightly. I think that would be a perfect time to purchase Justin Fields. And then once he becomes a starting quarterback there in the Chicago Bears offense, I believe that that team is going to be very successful with Justin at the helm. I think that his value is going to skyrocket as well, considering the defense there in Chicago, and the way that he can play. He can scramble, he can run, he can pass. He's going to be a very, very good quarterback for the Chicago Bears organization. So I believe Justin Fields is a very, very good play to buy in a few weeks and hold on to until he's successful in the league. So there you have it. There's my evaluation of the top 5 rookie quarterbacks heading into the NFL season. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me see what players you're investing in right now, and what do you think about the names that I brought up during this video. Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback. Also, if you like this video, hit that like button. If you like this channel and the content we're producing here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, click that notification bell, so every time we post a new video, you'll be the first to know about it. Thanks once again for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.